Okay, so now that you've got your relationship roadmap, I want to talk you through some of the background to our process, some of the information that's going to help you to know exactly what needs to change in order for your relationships to change. Okay, so I'm going to take you through the 7 stages of relationship quality, the pyramid of relationship readiness, the path to finding your one, the 4 relationship truths, and the BRAVE model. And I think these are the most crucial things for you to need to know in order to make the best use of the relationship roadmap. Okay, so the key to a happy relationship is quality. And that sounds quite obvious. But but some of the most toxic, some of the worst relationships are some of the most satisfying initially. And it's kind of like the whole people who get into relationships, narcissists, sociopaths, psychopaths, it's like the first 6 months are great. And then it's like once they've hooked you, and then it's the control and manipulation come in. So one of the key measures of quality is satisfaction over time. So many relationships are great for maybe the first 5 years. Excuse me. But what happens when you have children? What happens when you have health problems, all these kinds of stress? That's when it tests the quality of the relationship. And so you can have a great relationship in the short term, even for a number of years. But when something really challenges it, if you don't have that quality, if you don't have those building blocks in place, the relationship's going to crumble. So the key thing that we're working on is developing, how do you develop higher quality relationships? And so what I've got here is I've got 7 stages of relationship quality. This is a way that I measure excuse the coughing. This is the way that I measure the quality of relationships. So the first level is how most people operate. Most people just kind of waiting for relationships to happen to them. And they're hoping that the prince will come charging in on a white horse and everything will be fine, or the damsel in distress is there. So that's unaware. The next level is where you're happy and you're confident in yourself. So you're able to be your best self in the relationship, and you're not going to drain the relationship because you need something from it. The next stage is being aware of relationship dynamics. It's being aware of the pitfalls of relationship, knowing what it takes to build a successful relationship, but just haven't done it yet. So it's awareness of how to play the game of relationships. The next level is about dating. It's about excuse my coughing, I'm recovering from a cough. The next level is being able to find quality partners. So it's mastering dating skills, it's attracting attention, and it's being able to filter through all the prospective people that you could get into a relationship with to the one that's going to really build a high quality relationship. So then the next level is understanding how to structure a relationship. How you structure a relationship so it brings out the best in both parties, and so you're much more likely, the relationship's more resilient, so it's more likely to last. The next stage is having that clear communication, being able to deal with conflict, resolve differences, and face challenges. So this is the climate of the relationship. And the last level is basically success. It's where the relationship thrives, stand the test of time. So it's been tested. It can be tested, and it withstands it. People are working together cooperatively. People are keeping the passion, the intimacy alive. And it's about being friends and lovers, and it's been a supportive relationship. I mean, around here, you can have a great relationship, but it's based on the short term. It's based on maybe lust, and it's based on initial attraction and novelty. But what happens when that novelty goes? What happens when the lust goes? Can your relationship withstand that? Okay, so it's about the better able you are to achieve a quality relationship depends on certain skills. So, you get the quality relationship by number one, who you pick, and by having the skills and the resources in place. So this is what I call the relationship readiness pyramid, and it's a journey of increasing relationship quality. Because often people think that relationship quality is, oh, well, if I meet someone and it's the right person, it'll be a quality relationship. But if you haven't done the groundwork, then, and if you don't know how to drive the relationship, how to make the relationship work, then the quality isn't just automatically going to be there. There might be chemistry, there might be initial, but as soon as you get past a couple of years, that's going to fade. And that's why so many relationships just run out of steam and people feel they're incompatible, they grew apart. And it's really that they're frustrated with the relationship, but they don't know how to change it. Okay, so again, the first level is maybe is the stage where people are like stuck, unhappy over their ex, afraid to love and be hurt again. And so the key here is you've got to build the emotional foundations. The relationship relies on the two individuals to support it. So if you don't have those emotional foundations in place, that's going to take from the relationship. Okay, so the next level is maybe getting into relationships but keep meeting the wrong people, so lots of short-term relationships, getting frustrated and not knowing, like, what does it take? People often say to me, what does it take to make a relationship work? So the way that you do this is you change the game of relationships. You make relationships simple. And so there's something that you can take control of, and there's something that you can manage, and you can, relationships become something that you can achieve. So even after this, sometimes people still get stuck because they're stuck in, they pick the wrong people. They pick the wrong people, and they pick the wrong people for the wrong reasons. And when you look at, if you look back over your relationship history, why have you chosen people? Did you choose someone because they were really attractive? Did you choose someone because they weren't like your ex? Because they were good with kids? Because they were intelligent? Because they had a good job? Those kind of reasons end up, I mean, they play some part, but they end up, they're not really the critical criteria that's going to determine whether you have a relationship that's built to last. And so you need to know what kind of relationship what do you need from a relationship so that the relationship satisfies you, and what does that take? What does the other partner need to have? Okay, so this is about having a clear vision of success and finding the right partner, knowing who to choose of all the possible options. And then the last stage is, once you have that, is being able to build a relationship that works and lasts. And so if you don't have that, it's going to be frustration at your partner, which is going to lead to bitterness, resentment, feeling incompatible, the relationship just going stale. And so the way that you do that is by building a relationship that resolves difference, deepens love, trust, and respect. Okay, so the 9-step pathway, which I showed you in the first video, is really the key to building all the foundations, being ready to meet the person, and having everything that you need to make a relationship work and last, and choosing the right person that can also do that. And so, okay, so what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to tell you about the problems that happen if you haven't put these building blocks in place. If you haven't healed wounds, that's going to mean lack of trust. It's going to mean anxious. It's going to mean it's going to cause problems that's ultimately going to break up the relationship. If you don't have self-worth, you're going to settle for less than you deserve. You're going to accept what someone else does. You're going to try and lose yourself in trying to please someone else, trying to make a relationship work. If you're not happy on your own, eventually that's going to siphon off from the relationship, because what all of us do, we all strive for happiness, and whatever we believe will bring us happiness. And so if you're not happy, on your own, the relationship can be a temporary fix, but sooner or later that's going to drain from the relationship, you're going to drain from the other person, and there's going to be resentment and bitterness. The next stage is about the relationship foundations, and this is about changing the game. It's about making relationships simple. If you do relationships as most people do them, you're going to get the result that most people do them. If you make them simple, and by simple means a little bit of work up front, so that is you're building on truth, you've got honesty, that you're able to know how to navigate problems. Once you've changed the game, then you're able to take control. Sorry, I was going through problems, wasn't I? So once you change the game, so if you don't change the game, you're going to cause bitterness and frustration. If you do relationships in the traditional way, you're not going to feel that you can take control. You're going to feel that something happens to you. You have to wait for fate. You have to wait for the one to come along. So you're not going to feel in control. You're not going to feel that you can change it. And so the relationship drifts. And the relationship is probably going to drift somewhere that's not going to be that satisfactory to you or your partner. And sooner or later, one of you is going to just find it doesn't work for you. Okay, so if you don't set standards, you don't manage fears. If you don't set boundaries, you accept whatever. And this is where people get so lost. And I see all the time people dating, they're like, my boyfriend's cheated on me 3 times. He spends all my money because he relies on me for money. He beats me. He's not very nice to me. Is this right? And what happens is that they've got no standards. They've got no boundaries. And of course, I know that you're probably not in that situation, but there's like a spectrum of what you accept. And so you have to be very clear to be fair to your partner, because if you accept how something is for 5 years and then suddenly change it, then your partner's gonna be confused and not really understand. Okay. So if you don't have a clear vision, you just go with whoever is attracted. So you base the people that you date, you base on short-term attraction, you base on just who's exciting. And often the people that are most exciting are the people that are most the worst for actually long-term relationships. And that doesn't mean that you settle for someone dull and that you're not attracted to, but it means that you be a little bit more picky. So okay, so if you don't know how to attract attention, you're not going to meet enough people. You're not going to meet enough people to know who the right one is. So then the next stage is, if you don't know how to filter, you're going to get played. You're going to get into relationships that don't last, those relationships that aren't satisfied, relationships with someone that isn't really caring about you, or someone who just isn't capable of giving you the relationship that you need. Okay, so right, I want to give you a little bit of information about changing the game of relationships. And so this is the philosophy that's at the heart of Make Relationships Simple. And so the framework that most people use, and people that know that life isn't really like a fairy tale, and they know that relationships aren't really. But if you look at what people do, you'll find that a lot of this is the problem that of why their relationships never work out. Okay, so we all know the fairy tale model. The prince meets princess, they fall in love, they live happily ever after. So the 4 lessons of the fairy tale model are that there's one out there for everyone. And so the story goes, there's only one. And so people feel like, I haven't met my one yet, or what if I don't meet my one? And so a lot of people, like when a relationship doesn't work, or like 10 years, people don't think, well, I can fix the relationship. People think, well, if he was the one, and if he really loved me, then the relationship will work. Therefore, it mustn't be the one. I should go and find my one. The second lesson from the fairy tale model is, when you meet your one, you'll fall in love. So the problem with that is people feel under a lot of pressure, which is exacerbated by media and by Cosmo articles, that you need to be the most, that people are going to fall in love with you based on how beautiful you are. For a woman, it's going to be how beautiful you are. For a man, it's going to be how manly, how competent, how gallant he is. So there's a pressure to feel good enough. And the problem with this is that when someone falls out of love, you feel like you weren't good enough. You feel like, well, I wasn't beautiful enough. And if you look at one of the first things people do after a breakup, or when they feel that the relationship's on the slide, is they go for a makeover because they feel someone will love them more. Okay, so lesson 3 is, if the love is true, you'll live happily ever after. So all the problems in the prince and princess model happened before. They slay the dragon, they kill the wicked witch, undo the spell. But so that this sets you up for feeling like once you have that wedding day, which is like a recreation of the princess, the prince and princess's day, it means that you shouldn't have any more problems. And if you have problems, it means they're not the one. It means the love wasn't true. They didn't really love you. And so that's where a lot of relationships stumble. And the 4th lesson is that fate is the pathway to happy ever after. So love is a lottery. So you just have to be lucky. You just have to look beautiful every day and hope that your paths cross. And so this leads us to frustration. This leads us to business. It leads to people ending up hating each other. So the 4 relationship truths to contrast this are that relationships are a struggle. As Dan Weil says, when you marry someone, you marry a set of problems. And if you married someone else, you wouldn't have that set of problems, but you'd have a different set of problems. And so relationships are about understanding what the problems are with the person, and can you live with them? Can you live with those problems? Can you manage those problems? So relationships are always a struggle. And the cause of the struggle is our narrative. By this, I mean, we can't make sense of life factually. We have to put it in a context. We have to put it in a framework of a story so that it makes sense. But most of the problems, you can solve every relationship problem by understanding what the 2 narratives of the 2 people are and getting to actually what is the reality of the truth. And so I work as a mediator, and so you get two couples that are at standstill that won't even be in the same room. And so what you're basically getting to is, what's the truth? What's the truth of your reality? What's the truth of what you need to settle and to resolve this? What's the truth of yours? And then the job of a mediator is to cut through all the narratives and get to the reality of the truth and bring people to that truth so that they can agree. So we can let go, we can end the struggle of relationships if we let go of our narrative. So when there's a saying I always used to say, you can be right or you can be happy. And I've heard someone else say it, you can be right or you can feel love. And so it's knowing that the narrative in your head isn't necessarily right. So if you let go of that in favor of truth, and what is truth? Not someone else's truth, not my truth, your truth. Truth is reality. What does it work? Because everything that is based on truth lasts forever. Everything that's based on a narrative or is false is going to be found out sooner or later. And so we overcome the struggle when we build on truth, because my philosophy is that we build on truth. Because if you build on truth, you have all the building blocks, you have all the resources, and you're able to, the relationship's sustainable. Because otherwise you're trying to sustain a relationship that isn't sustainable because it's lacking some building block. Okay, so now what I want to move on to is, how do you build a relationship? Like, how is a built to last relationship built? And it begins with emotions. You've got to have emotional stability. If you don't have emotional stability, the relationship is going to be volatile. It's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be full of drama, and it's going to implode eventually. So then you need to envision a relationship. You need to know what you want before you get into the relationship, ideally. Then you need to be able to have the dating skills to be able to attract and filter. You need to have the romance. The romance is about building a relationship. It's about building a connection. It's also about building the practicality of a relationship that works. And the result of these is bliss, and that's when you do have the happy ever after. But the important thing is you don't go through once and, like, I've done emotions, right, I've had the vision, I've ticked that off. All of these change, people change, and relationships are so hard because they're dynamic, they're always changing. So you always do emotions, you always do vision, you always do attract, you always do romance. Most people have a completely different relationship when they're dating than when they're living together. And not just the fact that they're living together, not just the fact that that changes, but the fact that when there's dating, there's curiosity, there's interest, there's understanding, there's communication, there's spark, there's passion. When it just becomes about work and people forget about the dating side of things, people forget about the connection, and they're going to work, they're looking after the kids, they're looking after the house. It's just a grind. And sooner or later, that's going to take from the relationship. So you need to do all of this. So you start with emotions, you master emotions, and then you do vision and emotions. Then you master attracting and dating, but you keep in mind the vision, you keep in mind and you update the emotions, and then you do the romance of the building the relationship. But you still keep doing all these things. Okay. Okay, so now you have two choices. I've given you an understanding of the process of what we do, and you can go it alone. I'm going to give you the relationship roadmap, and you can work out what you need to do, what you need to change. You can find your own path. You can read lots of books, take courses, watch YouTube videos, and just learn from trial and error. For most people, most people don't want to be a relationship ninja. Most people want the easiest route to love. Most people want some sort of guidance from outside. So we have a pathway. You can walk. You can take that pathway that other people have taken. You can have some guidance. You can know if you're doing it right. You can know, like if this guy, this girl said something, is this right? Is this a red flag? So just so you have that sense of security. If you want to follow our pathway, then I've got a link down below with my calendar. You can book a call. The purpose of the call has one purpose: is this right for you or not? So there's really two dimensions that determine how quickly and how well you're going to do this, whether you do this yourself or whether you follow the pathway. The first is how open you are to truth. So how willing are you to let go of the narratives? Because a lot of what's held you back in relationships has been your blind spots. They've been the things that you believe that weren't true. So how open to truth are you, and how committed are you? So how willing are you to put in the effort to make changes so that you're different, so that your relationships are different? How willing are you to invest in knowing what you need to do? So they're the two factors. Now, the more willing you are, the more open to truth you are, the more committed that you are, the more value, like finding your one and having the relationship that you always wanted has to you, the more value our process is going to have. So I'm going to leave you underneath. There's a link. If you're interested, book a call, and we'll find out if it's right for you. If you choose that you want to work on it and do it yourself, here is the relationship roadmap. Okay, so what you're filling out here is what's your ultimate goal? What do you want? And the more specific that you are, the more easier it is for you to find the roadmap to achieve that. So then what's the current reality? We need to be really honest here, and nobody else needs to see this, but you need to be really honest with yourself. Like, what are the problems? What is the thing that's holding you back? And what do you need? What resources do you need? What are you lacking? Are you lacking information? Are you lacking emotional capacity? Are you lacking an understanding of relationships? Are you lacking the ability to pick the one? Are you lacking the ability to attract the one? This is what you need to write down here. Okay, so then once you've got what what you're lacking or what you need in order to have that relationship, you need to look at what needs to change. So what needs to change in the environment? In the environment is there something in your environment, in the way that you're living, that's stopping you from getting into a relationship? Are you sometimes people are in such huge debt, and then they're not in a sufficient independent state, and so they're not really. They're either get into a relationship that's to solve that problem, or in which case usually doesn't end up so well, or they're problems that are going to cause the relationship so much stress, so much conflict at an early stage that it's not going to be able to get resolved. So is there problems like in your living arrangements? Like, are you with an ex? Have you is there problems with your children? Is there problems with your job? This is about what needs to change in you on a personal level, so you're able to give the best shot to a relationship. The next one is maybe physically everything's fine, but what about emotionally? Are you scared to trust? Are you overly anxious in a relationship, overly needy? Are you particularly jealous? What are the emotional problems that could derail a relationship? And emotions are caused by beliefs. So what beliefs do you have about relationships? Like, maybe there's no good men out there, or women are only after money. What are the beliefs that you have about relationships? What are the beliefs you have about yourself? That's gonna sabotage your ability to have a relationship. And then it's about skills, what we do in a relationship. So are you lacking the skills to find someone? Are you lacking the skills to create and form a relationship? Are you lacking the skills to maintain a relationship? Are you lacking the skills to be able to deal with conflict, to be able to make someone feel safe, to be able to express yourself, to be able to resolve differences? All of these are skills. So, okay, so you just fill out what needs to change, and then what you need to do is you need to make a plan of, okay, what's the biggest thing? What's the there'll be a domino. There'll be one that everything else comes from, and often it's beliefs, because what we do. So skills can be a lack of skill, but often it's what we do. We do what we do because of how we feel, and how we feel is because of the beliefs. And so when you change beliefs, it often changes everything, which is why like the 4 relationship truths are so powerful, because it changes the game, and it changes the beliefs, and it changes everything that you do from then on. Okay, so that's what you do, and then just make a plan, and find what resources you can to make those changes. And when you make those changes, then because you're different, the relationships that you have and the people that you attract are going to change, and so then you're better set up to have a relationship that lasts. If there's anything you want any help with, if you're interested in going through our process, book a call. Links below. Other than that, best of luck.